Welcome to another Parksen show, the place where we talk all about PARQ and more importantly, how we shape our cities to be greener, smarter and more connected. On today's show we have Paul, and Paul is our Chief Security Officer. And you're probably one of the most requested interviewee we got from our investors and users. And you guys probably know why, because Paul is an ethical hacker, and the most frequently asked questions, if I might point it that way, is then, what does it mean to be an ethical hacker?
As an ethical hacker, I try to keep updated on the various attack scenarios and methods of other hackers. I also try to hack into computer networks to evaluate how secure those networks are and use that knowledge to improve computer and network security of the firms I work for. Though being ethical, I do so without malicious content or criminal intent.
What is the difference between ethical hacker and so-called quote-unquote white, gray, black hat hackers?
Well, there are three types of hackers defined that are identified by the color of a metaphorical hat: white, gray and black. Black hats are basically your baddies. They usually have in-depth knowledge of how to break into computer systems and know how to bypass security protocols. Black hats violate computer security for personal or criminal gain by stealing confidential or financial data like credit card numbers. White hats, they can be seen as the opposite of black hats, good versus evil if you like. They are also known as ethical hackers and usually work for firms to shore up their defenses against black hats. White hats use the same type of techniques as black hats, but with the distinction that they seek approval of the owner of the computer systems and the networks they hack.
So they won't steal my credit card details unless I ask them to?
They defend you from black hats. So then we have gray hats, and they are of course in between. As in real life, not everything is black and white. Even the law is not always clear on what is allowed and what not. And these laws can even differ per country. So a grey hat sometimes hacks systems with permission and sometimes without. Sometimes they will report vulnerabilities they found and sometimes they don't. A grey hat is usually not malicious in his or her intent, but their activities are often illegal because they do not have explicit permission to hack the systems.
So let's say 50 Shades of Hacking, in a way.
Yeah, you could compare it to that, yes.
So then how does it shape your perspective of day-to-day life coming from an ethical hacking background?
Being an ethical hacker has made me realize that total security, like total privacy, does not exist. You can defend yourself against all kinds of attacks, but 100% safety is an illusion. I can have my bicycle guarded with 20 locks, but a determined thief will be able to steal the bicycle in the end. What you can do is make things so difficult the would-be thief gives up in favor for an easier target.
So yeah, it's a pretty big challenge, but what would be then the biggest challenge you will tackle as an ethical hacker?
To stay white, I would say. It is so very easy to stray the line and do some actions that are not allowed. For instance, when I see a vulnerability of a system that is connected to the internet, I know it may be there, but I have to actually exploit the vulnerability to see if the system is really compromised. And exactly at that moment, it would need the owner's permission. But it is so very, very easy to just take that little step further.
So it is that permission that sets apart a white hat hacker than gray or of course black at the end.
Yes, that is exactly it.
Then with that rich, so interesting background, and I am so happy that we're having this conversation, because for myself it was exciting to read your background, and I know that, and we're working together, and I can only assume how others do as well. So with your extensive background coming from both working with the Ministry of Defense and the municipalities afterward, and what would you say then drew you to Parksen?
As you may know, I have worked in the parking industry for some years, and during that time I saw how underdeveloped parking was around the world. One night, as I was visiting a colleague of mine who now owns Parksen, we were, yes, it's Eddie, we were discussing our experiences in the parking world. And as he told me his vision of a smart, green and connected world, it largely coincided with my own view of the field. So I could do nothing other than become involved in the idea.
Well, that really takes us to the efficacy again then. Making it smarter, greener and more connected is pretty much ABC for us then. Well, then how do you believe Parksen can shape the vision of a smarter, greener and more connected city?
The answer lies in knowledge of the area surrounding you. Technology changes our world in a fast pace and everything communicates with each other. We can use sensors and connectivity to learn about the state of the world around us in real time. Using IoT devices, that's Internet of Things, we can equip the city with many sensors that can do almost anything we ask them to do. These tasks could be reporting a free parking spot, or the noise level of that area, the pollution level, the types of pollution, or even the amount of light in that area. Using the data of all IoT devices in the city, we will get a real-time picture of the city and can use that information to optimize traffic, minimize the pollution, and to reduce the time it takes to find a parking spot. Even in the near future, cars can easily park themselves using information from our sensors. All this leads to a smarter, greener and more connected city.
Yeah, that's a beautiful vision, and I know that we're going forward with it, but we also operate in what's called token economics. We're the launch of the ICO, and questions are raised. So I know that one of the most pressing one is how would you address the security worries as our chief security officer in operating in token economics?
Once you switch to a crypto-based financial system, you will basically cut out the banks. The end user has become its own bank. That means that the security of the user data lies with the user itself. In a traditional system, a user can lose his password for accessing his bank account, so then he can contact the bank and have them reset the password. In the crypto world, that bank is not there anymore, and the user has to take responsibility of confidential data himself. This is inherent to the decentralized architecture of crypto systems. Now, how does this relate to Parksen? Once you use the Parksen ecosystem, you will do your parking transactions within our systems. The financial transaction to acquire tokens will be done by the end user. So the end user has to keep his or her private data safe from hackers and malware or spyware. We recommend therefore that users use hardware wallets, as they are mostly secure from hackers or malware and do not allow private data to leave the hardware wallet.
Well, that's actually a really good point, because on one of our previous questions that we had for Mark, if you guys remember, we actually asked what wallet does he use, and if you guys want to learn a bit more, please go to Mark's video interview as well. It's right on the link below, so use that to see what wallet you might actually want to use, which he uses, so it's just a recommendation. So in every show that we have here, our tradition is to bring the questions from our users right to the team itself, so we can make sure that the transparency that we talked about, the ethical work that we're pushing out there, is really aligned with our users as well. Yeah. And one of our users' question was, How does Parksen assure municipalities and government ministries worries about so-called inability to set and or enforce security policy in cloud server provider environments? So on our side.
There is no silver bullet, no single solution that would make municipalities or government ministries instantly happy. The solution is a number of measures and standards, like the ISO 27001 or the NIST 800-53, those standards that you have to be compliant with. Also, our software is always developed with security hardening in mind, not just functionality. One of the things that we do is a full pen test on our systems to find vulnerabilities in time. A pen test stands for penetration test, and during that test we test the resistance of our systems in real life. We actually try to break into the systems to see if there are any weaknesses and fix them before they become an issue.
Well, that's actually a good lead to the second question, which is how does Parksen addresses the issue of unauthorized access to customer and business data on cloud-based solutions?
We use two-factor authentication systems. That means that the users of our systems will have to identify themselves by name and password, and then confirm their identity by entering a code that is sent to their telephone. This way, an attacker would need the name and the password of a user account, and then needs to take over the phone of the user. While it is not impossible to do this, the effort to implement this attack is too big for normal hackers. But remember that the world is changing fast, and what is not possible today may be possible tomorrow. That is why we monitor the hackers' world closely, and if we see new threats, we will implement appropriate countermeasures to ensure the safety of our users and their data.
Well, I know that will help me rest a bit better this night, and I hope you too. And I would like to thank you a lot, Paul, for the time you gave us to really answer the users' questions and let us know a bit more about your work and your background. And I would also like to thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you next time. And don't forget, with every PARQ you get, you help us shape a world that will be much, much better. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.